First, we consider in the model 1 linear predictor having the only two elements beta 0 plus beta 1 x, and another model, let us say we add the term, quadratic term of x called x square, then my second model, for second model linear predictor is beta 0 plus beta 1 x plus beta 2 x square. We know that the first model, that is M1, is a subset of the second model because M1 is contained into the M2 model. So of course, when there is a model of nested in nature, we can use the concept of deviance statistics. Okay. So we assume the or we would like to test there is no impact of the quadratic term. Okay. So we assume that h naught equal to beta 2 equal to 0. And now we will test based on the deviance. So we will calculate the deviance of beta 2 given beta 1 is having the chi-square width because it has only one parameter, so one degree of freedom. And if this exceeds the chi-square with 1 alpha, we reject the h naught. That means the quadratic terms are important for the model development. And if accept the hypothesis, that means the quadratic term has no impact. So here we studied the subset of regressions through deviance. But same deviance test of subset of regression can also be useful to test the individual testing of the regression coefficient. So you can proceed in two ways. Okay, one way is that either you can use the test of subset of regressions using the deviance, and then you can see that whether the individual regression coefficients are significantly differ or zero. Otherwise, one has to go for the test statistics like t-test. We call them as a wall statistics, which can be useful to take the decision whether the individual regression coefficients are significantly differ from zero or not. So let us come to this part. We would like to see that whether the test on individual model coefficient. So test of individual model coefficient means, let us say if my linear predictor is something like that, beta 0 plus beta 1 x1 plus beta 2 x2 plus up to beta p xp. And if I wish to see that beta j equal to 1 to p. So if beta j is 0 or not, that means the jth variable, when I'm saying that the jth regression coefficient is 0, it means that jth variable has no impact for the model development. Okay. So for example, if we are comparing about the recovery of the patient, so if we have given the placebo, one group we have given the placebo and one group we have given active drugs. Now, the age of the patient is also affecting the curing the patient. So if I am saying that age has no impact on the curing of the patient, it is the purely impact of either drugs or the placebo. So for that setup, I simply take the coefficient of the age is 0. So let us say the coefficient of age is beta j, and if it is a 0, okay, versus beta j is not equal to 0. So can be this particular hypothesis can be computed using the difference in the deviance method, as I just discussed with you. There is another approach is also based on the theory of maximum likelihood estimator, because we know that whatever the estimate we have obtained, they are the maximum likelihood estimator. Why? Because we had applied the IRLS method to obtain the estimate of parameters. And we know that the maximum likelihood estimators, MLEs, are asymptotically normal. Okay, so MLEs are approximately normal, and the estimator has little bias or no bias. Sometimes we say that the MLE estimators are biased. Sometimes they may not be biased. If it is a bias, then the bias is a little. Further, the variance and covariance of a set of maximum likelihood estimator can be found from the second derivatives of log likelihood function with respect to the model parameters evaluated at maximum likelihood estimate. So we have already obtained the second derivative of log likelihood with respect to the parameters beta I and beta j. So this is nothing but the del square L beta by del beta I del beta j. And the second, if you take the minus of the second derivative and their expected value, it is giving the variance. So that we have already seen. So we call them as a Gij. So Gij is nothing but it is a second derivative of log likelihood with respect to the parameters involved in the models. Here we have a k parameters. So we have to take the derivative with respect to beta I, beta j, where ij running from 0 to k plus 1. K 1 to k are regression and 0 for the intercept parameters. Instead of p, they have considered here k. So if you have the estimate and if you have the standard error of estimate, so of course we know that it is a kind of a t-test, that it is estimate divided by the corresponding standard error. It is it has the approximately t distribution with corresponding degree of freedom. Okay. So a t statistics, like t statistics, a test which you are calculated, it is called the Wald statistics. Whatever the statistics you are calculated here, it is a Wald statistics. And because we have considered the estimate of sigma square is residual deviance by the corresponding degree of freedom. But when we are approaching the log likelihood, we say that we have considered sigma square equal to 1. So it means that sigma is known, then the ratio of ratio of the estimate divided by the corresponding standard error is nothing but the z statistics, and it has a normal 0 1. So if you write, let us say p is equal to k plus 1, then g is denote the p cross p matrix of the second derivatives, and we call them as a g as a Hessian matrix. If you remember, we have calculated the Hessian matrix for the 2 del square L by del beta 0 square, del square L by del beta 0 del beta 1, del square L by del beta 1 del beta 0, and del square L by del beta 1 square. So this is what the Hessian matrix we have already calculated when we discuss about the iteratively weighted least square method. So similar way, you have to just find out the Hessian matrix, and that Hessian matrix is evaluated at the maximum likelihood estimator of beta. We call them as a B. And for a large sample approximate covariance matrix of regression coefficient, so we have already obtained this variance of beta cap. We have obtained that x dash. Instead of v, we have used the w, x dash w cap x inverse. And this is nothing but when you take the inverse of Hessian and multiply by the minus sign at the estimate of beta, we call them as the variance of b. If you remember, I told you that just write the Hessian matrix minus of the G and their inverse. It is giving the variance covariance of B. Okay, because we have considered here sigma square equal to 1. That is how this is the variance covariance of B is x dash V inverse V cap x inverse, or case we have taken the W. So now if we know the B's and corresponding the variance covariance matrix, then the square root of the diagonal element is giving these are the things, and if you find out the inverse of this and multiply minus mean, the square root of the diagonal element is giving the variance of the corresponding estimators. And when you take the square root, it is giving the standard errors. So it is estimated standard error of a regression coefficient. Just take the square root of this particular x dash v x inverse. Just take the diagonal value, find out the square root, it is giving the standard error of the corresponding estimates. So if I wish to perform the test of this null hypothesis, now the test statistics is nothing but z0 is beta j cap upon standard of beta j cap, and it has a standard normal 1 distribution. And If you take the square of this, Wahl statistics is nothing but the square of this. And because it has the only a one parameters, the degree of freedom is the one, only you are testing one parameters that is individual, so degree of freedom is a chi-square with 1 degree of freedom. So some of the tests, some of the computers are using the Z0 and they are comparing with the normal. Some of the computers, programs, softwares, they just take the square and then compare with the chi-square 1. Both are the same. So if we talk about the example of the, here it is at 10 point. Okay, here it is changing. Okay. So if we are talking about the example of the, which example? O-ring failed or not. At least one O-ring is failed and X is nothing but it is your temperature. Now we feel that not only the temperature, but there is a quadratic effect of the temperature is also affecting the response. So now I would like to see that whether there is a effect of the quadratic temperature or not. So I will consider this as a, let us say, beta 2 equal to 0. My model is something like that. Eta is beta 0 plus beta 1 x plus beta 2 x square. They have just they have just subtracted x by 6, 9 for all the cases. Okay. Now we wish to see that whether the x2 equal to 0 or not, or x2 has an impact or not. So I will perform the h0 beta 2 equal to 0, and the corresponding estimate is this, standard error is this, so z0 is this, and when you take the square it is a 0.43. So 0.43 is a chi-square, it is a calculated chi-square that should be compared with the chi-square with 1 degree of freedom, and the resulting the value is a 0.5130. Okay, the p value, not the f value, it is resulting the p value is a 0.5130. So it is suggesting that the null hypothesis is accepted. So it means that there is no impact of a quadratic term. So recall from the previous example that when we tested for the significance of beta 11 using the partial deviance method, we obtained different p-value in the regression coefficient. And the t-test on a single regression is equivalent to the partial f-test or a single value. We know that if it is a single variable, so you are getting the f is equal to t square. So of course the result in the both the statistics values are same, but okay. So how to assess the individual testing of parameters? It is based on the, there are two approach. One is testing of hypothesis on a subset of regression using the deviance, and second one is the individual testing. You can perform in the both the way. Okay, if you are using the individual testing, then you have to, in a testing of subset of regression, you do not require to go for the finding the Hessian matrix. Okay, you can directly take the decision over there. But if you are going for the Wahl statistics, you have to obtain the estimate of parameters, you have to obtain the Hessian matrix, you have to take the inverse of Hessian matrix with minus sign, and that you have to evaluate at the MLE of beta. And then when you take the ratio of estimate divided by the standard error of the estimate of beta called B, it is giving the Z0, and that is nothing but it is a normal. It is a statistic which has the normal distribution, and then square of the standard normal is nothing but the chi-square 1. So you have to just compare the Z0 square with the chi-square 1 and you have to take the decision. So there are two approaches you can proceed. Any questions up to this? Anyone?
No, sir.
Anyone?
No, sir.
No,
Okay,
sir.
तो आपको you may suppose ask how to how to test the or how to perform the testing of hypothesis in the binary logistic regression. So you can discuss the approach of the deviance, and you can discuss the approach of individual testing. In a simple linear regression and multiple regression, we first perform the analysis of variance. Here we are not performing the analysis of variance. Here we are performing the deviance. Okay, and then we directly go for the individual testing. So once the testing of hypothesis problem is worked out, now you wish to develop the confidence interval, because now you know the form of a test statistics and you know the standard error of estimate. So you can easily obtain the 95% confidence interval. You can say the approximate 100 into 1 minus alpha percent confidence interval on the jth model coefficient. The estimate of jth model coefficient is Bj. What is the standard error? So that is the standard error of Bj is AC Bj, and the test statistics is a Z, but we are talking about the confidence interval. So it is here Z alpha by 2, left hand side and my right hand side. So Bj minus Z alpha by 2 standard error of beta j is the lower bound, and this is the upper bound. So this is the lower bound. So let us go with the output they have given about the beta 1 1. That means there is a quadratic term has an impact or not. So I will show you that table 4.9, the output they have given in a JMP. Yeah, this is this. See, this is the intercept beta 0. This is the x they have taken. Okay. That is the temperature. And this is the quadratic of temperature. Okay. So they say that it has the estimate intercept is beta 0. The temperature has the beta 1 and it has a beta 1 1. So now they are interested to see that this beta 1 1 is 0. So you can see that the corresponding estimate, corresponding standard error, and when you take the ratio of this and then the square, it is a 2.28. And if you find out the p-value, the p-value is, sorry, not here, we'll come to that. The p-value, chi-square value is this, and the p-value is a corresponding 0.51, so which is greater than 0.05. So we say that the quadratic temperature has no impact on the O-ring failures. Now I wish to develop a confidence interval. So what I require the estimate. This is estimate. And what I require the standard errors. So I can easily obtain. So let us come to that. So this was the estimate. This is the standard error, and Z alpha by 2. When you take alpha equal to 0.05, so Z 0.025 is nothing but it is giving the 1.96. Okay. So this is giving the lower bound. And similarly, if you substitute in the value in upper bound, you will get this upper bound. I told you decision of testing of hypothesis in two ways. One is that you look at the p-value. If p-value is significant, we say that the null hypothesis is rejected. And what was the null hypothesis? Use the null hypothesis is that the regression coefficient is 0. So p-value less than 0.05, we reject that. This is not 0. Another, I told you that you just calculate the odds ratio, and if odds ratio is exceed the 1, then we say that we still reject the hypothesis, because e raised to beta 1 1, if you accept, the odds ratio become the 1. Okay. Third one is that you just develop a confidence interval and try to see that whether the 0, beta 1 1 is now 0. So 0 is contained in this interval. Yes. So it is from minus to plus. So it is further indicating that, notice that the confidence interval include the 0, so that 5% significance level would not reject the null hypothesis. That means this model coefficient is 0. So this is where you can also take the decision. And odds ratio, if I wish to find out the odds ratio of a confidence interval, so I know that odds ratio is nothing but exponent of the estimate of regression coefficient. And if I am going for a confidence interval, I have to just take the exponent of a lower limit of the regression coefficient and exponent of a upper limit of the coefficient, because OR is nothing but, odds ratio is nothing but e raised to beta 1 1 in our setup. Okay, so if you are just trying to find out the odds ratio for the individual regression coefficient, so here they say that what was the estimate of beta 1 in the Challenger data example? It is a minus 0.173, and exponent of B1 is nothing but it is 0.84. So when it is a 0.84, so it is less than 1. And of course, the null hypothesis is rejected that we have seen. And we also told that as you increase the 1 unit in the temperature, it will decrease the 16% chance of O-ring failure. Okay. So what should be the range of odds ratio with 95% confidence interval? So use the above formula. Just this is the lower bound of individual regression coefficient. Take exponent of that. This is the upper bound of regression coefficient. Then take exponent of that. It is giving the odds ratio. This is the lower bound of the odds ratio. This is the upper bound. So it is giving the 0.7 to 0.99. That means 95% confidence interval of odds ratio is 0.72 to 0.99. Up to here clear, everyone? It's very simple. Estimate plus or minus test statistics into the standard error of estimate. It is giving the confidence interval. And when you are trying to find out the confidence interval of odds ratio, so we know that how to calculate odds ratio. Odds ratio calculated by e power the estimate of regression coefficient. So similarly, if we are interested to lower bound, so e power of lower bound of regression coefficient, that is giving the lower bound for a odds ratio, and e power of the upper bound of regression coefficient is give the upper bound of a odds ratio. And just we know the all the values, just substitute it, we can get their value. Okay, so I may in a practicals, I may suppose give the such kind of a data and ask you to calculate. So you can have the calculator, you can easily calculate. Okay, so such kind of information may be
Yes.
asked in the examination if the computers are not available. Okay, some output is given and asked that what is the odds ratio with 95% confidence interval. I can also provide the table value and other things. Okay, but here in the when you talk about the binary logistic regression, so we have seen that we are using the Z test, and Z alpha by 2 is a 1.96, so that we know, and Z alpha is a 1.65, that we also know. Yes, if no question, then we can move forward.
Yes, sir. No questions.
Okay. Now the
Okay,
next
sir.
question is always with us. Okay, we have developed the model. Now I have the model probabilities with me. This is I have developed. Okay, and we know that beta cap equal to x dash b. That I also know, and I have developed this. Okay. Now my question is, suppose I wish to develop the confidence of a linear predictors. Linear predictors means this b you have estimated from the model, but suppose the new value of the x is given to you. So I wish to develop a confidence interval for this linear predictor. So how to do that, and what should be their confidence interval? So it is possible to find the confidence interval on the linear predictor at any set of value of the predictor variable that is of interest. Suppose my variable of interest is that x0 dash. We take this value 1 x01 select x0k. x01 means it is a some value for the regressor 1. x02 means it is a some value for the regressor 2. For example, in yesterday practical, we have seen that if we give the dose is a 1.8, okay, so we have only considered the one variable dose. That's why I have taken the x0 as a 1 comma 1.8. Here, because we have considered the k regressor, the dose is 1 comma x01 x02 up to x0k. So that dose is given to you. Now you wish to develop the confidence interval for a linear predictor. So what should be the range of that? So of course, to calculate this, what you require. So once you have x0 dash is with you, you can calculate the linear predictors. How to calculate linear predictors? It is a x0 dash b. Now to obtain the linear predictors, I told you what I require. I require the variance of the estimate of a linear predictor. So what is the estimate of linear predictors? It is a x0 dash b. I have to first find out the variance. So how to find out the variance? So variance of this is equal to x0 dash is constant, variance of b x0. So we know that variance of a b is equal to a variance of b a transpose. Okay, so similarly we had applied here, and variance of b we have already calculated in earlier expression. So x0, so we have this variance of b, and when you take, sorry, variance of x0 dash b, when you take the square root of that, it is giving the standard error of a linear predictor. So what is the confidence interval? It is usual procedure, estimate minus value of a test statistics and the standard error of a linear predictors. So it is nothing but the square root of this. And similarly, upper bound x0 dash b, that means estimate plus test statistics and the corresponding standard error. So it has given the 95% confidence interval of a standard error, sorry, linear predictors. So this is said to be a lower bound, this is said to be a upper bound. So they denote it as LX0 for the lower bound and UX0 for the upper bound. Now if I wish to calculate the probability, what is the probability, estimated probability at eta 0? So what is the formula? It is a pi 0 cap equal to e raised to eta 0 cap upon 1 plus e raised to eta 0 cap.
1 plus 1.
Okay, so if I wish to find out their particular probability, so how to do? I have to just first I have to take the e raised to eta 0 and then 1 plus e raised to eta 0. So you can see here, this is nothing but the pi 0. What is the lower bound? It is exponent of the lower limit of the linear predictors divided by 1 plus exponent of lower limit of linear predictors. It is giving the lower limit of the estimated probability at given value of x0. And similarly, this is the upper limit of the linear predictors. See, it's very simple. If you understand the methodology, it's very simple to derive. Nothing is required to cram. Just पानी की तरह flow में साथ में चलते जाएंगे तो you may get the, oh, it's very so simple to obtain. Okay, so this is the lower limit for the probability and this is the upper limit. Now, what the question is given, suppose the O-ring temperature X is equal to 60 degree Fahrenheit. I wish to find out what is the confidence interval for the probability of the failure of the O-ring. So I know that this is the estimate of beta 0, this is the estimate of beta 1. I just supply the value of x0. So this my probability is nothing but the 0.648 e raised to eta upon 1 plus e raised to eta. It is giving the 0.648. But I wish to find out the confidence interval of a linear predictor. So what I have to do? I have to obtain the variance of x0 dash b. Now x0 dash is with me. What is x0 dash? It is a 1 comma 60. Why? Because we have given the 60. 1 is for the intercept and 60 is for the x. And this variance covariance of b we have already obtained. earlier we have developed this all the theory where we have obtained the variance covariance matrix. This is the Challenger data. We have where we have developed the derivation of variance of B. Yes, yes, this some matrices. Yes. Okay. So this visually we are obtaining by the iterative reweighted least square methods. So we have this. So if we know the form of X, we found of the W. So X dash W X inverse. This is giving the variance of B. So that we already know and we can calculate. So that is written over here. Okay, and this is X dash X0 dash. This is the variance of B and this is the X0. So you will calculate the, because only it is a 1 cross 2. This is a 2 cross 2 and this is a 2 cross 1. So that means result is a 1 cross 1 and that is how it is giving the scalar. So we have only one linear predictors. So now we get this. So just take the square root of that. This is the estimate of linear predictors, 0.5906. Okay, just when you substitute it, you will get this. This is the linear predictors. It is a 0.596. You can see that it is equal 0 for X0 dash beta. Minus 1.96 and this is the square root of variance of X0 dash B. So this is giving the lower limit and this is giving the upper limit. And you can see that there is no 0 in that. That means the temperature has the impact. So that we already obtained. Just take the probability. This is the lower limit formula for the probability and this is the upper limit of the probability, and just substitute this value, you will get this. So if the temperature is 60° Fahrenheit, what is the confidence interval that O-ring is failed, or what is the probability with 95% confidence interval that O-ring is failed? At least O-ring, it is a 0.25 to 0.957. Okay? Any questions to anyone?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, so lack of it is this going to discuss in the seminar, so I'll just skip that part. And this also diagnosis checking is also I have given in the seminar. Okay, so we will discuss over there, especially they will discuss. Already I have discussed with you people. RSI is nothing but the standardized Pearson residuals. Okay. So these are all, yes. So if I wish to, let us discuss. If I wish to, see in any process, our first step is understand data. Second step is decide technique. Which technique is possible? What is the third step? Once the technique is decided, estimate parameters of regression coefficient, whatever that. Then you go for the testing. testing of parameters. Then you talk about the goodness of fit of the model, where you can use the deviance, we can use the AIC, okay? And then we go for the residual analysis. And residual analysis is mainly useful. It is a diagnostic checking. So residual analysis, we always try to see that if the deviance residuals DI, so whether DI is normal or not. So we always make a plot of DI, okay, and we try to see that whether all the point is covered by the, okay. So if all the point is covered by the line, then we say that the DI are normally distributed. But how will you calculate the deviance residuals? So as we discussed, there are three residuals in the generalized linear models. One is a Pearson residuals, second one is a Anscombe residuals, and third one is a deviance residuals. So residuals is nothing but it is the observed minus estimated or predicted. So in our case, what is the, because pi cap we are predicting, that means we are trying to predict the expected response. The expected response is in a binomial trial, it is n pi. So we call them as a ni pi cap. So yi minus ni pi cap is nothing but my residuals. Now, if I'm trying to find out the residuals, which residuals is analogous to the ordinary residuals in the binary logistic regression, so that is called the deviance residuals. So deviance residual, how will you calculate the deviance residuals? So we know that the DI is nothing but the plus or minus of the deviance statistics, square root of deviance statistics. If you remember, we wrote in this way, SGN y minus mu and square root of DI. Okay, so this is the contribution of ith variables in the deviance. Just take the square root of this. So this, in a binomial distribution, the form of the deviance will be this. Just square root of that, it is giving the this, and the plus or minus sign depends on the whether the y is greater than mu or not. So here mu is nothing but pi. So if you say that y equal to 0, y takes two value possible. Either y takes value 0, because now it is a y is a count, or y takes value ni. Okay. If it is a ungrouped data, it is taking only 0 and 1. Then instead of ni, I have to write the 1. So if I take y equal to 0, so this part will vanish. So what this contribution is that ni into ln. Ni is cancel out and 1 upon pi I. So that sign, if you take outside, so it is become the minus. It is a minus of twice of ln 1 minus pi I. It is in the square root. So this is in the square root. And here, why it is a sign is minus? Because yi is less than pi I. Because you have considered the y equal to 0. So that sign is a minus. But when you substitute the y equal to ni, okay, so that is greater than the, so this become the positive, and here when you write the ni, so this part will be gone away. So here yi is nothing but your ni, so 2 times ni ln, this ni will be cancel out, 1 upon pi I, but log upon pi I is nothing but minus of log pi I, so it is a minus twice of log pi I. And this sign is positive. Why? Because we are taking the ni. Ni is the greater than equal to mean. Okay. So this is called the Pearson residual. So you have to calculate the Pearson, deviance residuals. Just when y takes value 0, what is the deviance? So that you have to calculate deviance residuals in this way. When your y take value ni, what is the form of the deviance residuals? Okay. So that you have to calculate. And suppose if it is if you are talking about y takes value 0 and 1, then you just substitute ni equal to 1. Okay, the y equal to 0, your di is minus square root of twice of ln 1 minus pi I cap. And y equal to 1, your di is the square root of minus 2 ln pi I cap. So in that way you can calculate. Pearson residual is nothing but, we know that it is nothing but the observed minus estimated value divided by the corresponding standard error. So it is a yi minus its estimated divided by the its standard deviation, because the binomial distribution has the mean is n pi and variance is n pi into 1 minus pi. So this is called the Pearson residuals. And if you make the Pearson residual, okay, now we also know the form of the hat matrix. Hat matrix in the second semester we have seen that x, x dash x, inverse x dash. And if it is a invertible, x dash x is invertible. If it is not, then it is minus sign की जगह पे क्या लेंगे, bar लिखेंगे. So we write the generalized inverse. But when we have the weight is present in our data, then the hat matrix is defined in this way. So what is the form? It is a v raised to half x, x dash vx inverse x dash v raised to half. If you write the v is equal to identity, you can just say that if it is identity, then it is x, x dash, x inverse x dash. So it is reduced to that. If you write v equal to identity. Okay, so this is the height matrix, and what are the diagonal value of, v is nothing but the h is the height matrix and v is nothing but the variance covariance matrix, or you can say that variance function. So variance of y क्या था? It is n into pi into 1 minus pi in a binomial distribution. So if it is a variance of yi, we call them as vi I. So it is nothing but ni pi I 1 minus pi I. So this is what it is saying, that the V cap is the diagonal matrix defined earlier that has the variance of each observation in the main diagonal, and that is value this. And this estimated variance calculated using the probability. If you just estimate करना है तो pi I unknown है, तो pi को you just substitute as estimate, so you will get the estimate of a variance covariance matrix. Okay, and so of course, what is the diagonal value of the H? We call them as a leverage, ith leverage value. Okay, so if you wish to find out the standardized residuals or the standardized Pearson residuals, so what should be the form? The standardized Pearson residuals you can obtain by RSI equal to standardized residual divided by the 1 minus HII. Okay, and what is RI? So RI we have already taken this. If you remember, we have obtained that variance of E is nothing but it is a sigma square into 1 minus HII. So that is the same estimate of the sigma square we have substituted. Okay. So this is standardized Pearson residuals. And for a given data, you can easily calculate these are the value they have. Okay, these are the temperature is given, this the failure is given, the predicted probability. How will you calculate? You just calculate the eta, and based on the eta, you calculate the phi cap. So this is the predicted value is given. Pearson residual, how will you calculate? So Pearson residuals you can calculate in this way. So you know the pi, you know the y, you know the ni. You can calculate the, here in Challenger data, ni is equal to 1 because it was ungrouped data. So you can calculate this Pearson residuals. Then how will you calculate the standardized Pearson? So you have already written Ri upon square root of 1 minus HII. So how will you calculate HII? Because you have the H matrix. So you take the diagonal, it is giving the leverage value. You have already calculated the deviance. Okay. So we have discussed up to this part. This part we will take tomorrow. That is nothing but the is to identify is there an influential point in the data or not. Based on the leverage, based on the Pearson residuals, based on the standardized Pearson residuals, we take the decision whether there is a presence of outlier in the data or not. And based on the difference in the betas, difference in the chi-square and difference in the di, we take the decision whether the ith point is an influential point or not. So I think we should keep up to here. Any questions so far, anyone?
Awesome.
Hello. Any
No, sir.
query?
No, sir.
No, sir.
So,
In applied statistics, anyone has any query?
No, sir.
Okay. So किसी को लेफ्ट करके मीटिंग नहीं जाना है जब तक मैं ना कहूँ तब तक. Everyone has to be here. So